Hey y'all, Mike here. It has been a minute since we unpacked the evolution of the Epiphone Casino's USA-made production run, and many of you have requested a follow-up. It was no small feat to get all of these casinos in one place. And today we're delving deep into the many Japanese and even Korean-made casinos spanning over 40 years of production. For pickups, wood choices, net carves, hardware variations, nut widths, I'm running out of fingers, obscure serialization breakdowns, and more, we're digging into all of it. And the sheer scope of Japanese casino production may surprise you. First, a roadmap. We have three main eras of Epiphone Casino production in Japan. First at the Matsumoku factory in the 1980s, then at the Terada factory well into the 1990s, which we'll call the pre-Elitist era. And then things pick up again in 2002, also at Terada under Epiphone's Elitist banner. So while the Epiphone brand was originally made in the USA under Gibson ownership at their Kalamazoo, Michigan factory, the concept of Epiphone being a lesser or budget brand comparable to Gibson begins in 1971. In 1970, Epiphone production in the USA had ceased, and Gibson's parent company, Norlin, was making some moves. Norlin subcontracted the Epiphone name to Japanese manufacturer Aria, who in turn began cranking out Epiphone branded guitars at the Matsumoku factory, which is also in Japan. The early Matsumoku-made Epiphones bore a little resemblance to the previous USA-made guitars, and there wasn't a casino in sight. Early Matsumoku Epiphone output involved rebranding guitars that Matsumoku was already making with little regard for Epiphone's legacy models. And as with a wide swath of Japanese guitar manufacturing in the 1970s, quality improved substantially as the decade progressed. But okay, here's where things get fuzzy with the hows and whens of early Japanese casino production. There is a lot of contradictory information out there regarding the years Matsumoku produced the Epiphone Casino. The best information we have available indicates that the first digit of the serial number on Matsumoku-made casinos would indicate the year of production. This would align with the few dozen casinos from this era we've had through the shop, the earliest of which have a 0 or 1 prefix, which matches up with the earliest feature set on these Japanese casino models. So what's the confusing part? Well, here it is. There is a catalog making the rounds online with a casino model pictured, attributed to 1976 and 1977, depending on the source. But the first concrete availability of the casino model comes from Epiphone's circa 1980 catalog. I'm really hoping the comments section will light up on this particular data point. There are plenty of individuals and dealers touting that they own or are selling a 1970s blue label casino. But our research hasn't found much of anything to back that up, aside from a very loose online consensus referencing the same questionable sources. So, blue label casino, what do I mean by that? Well, the first Matsumoku-made casinos had a blue rectangular label inside, nearly identical to the USA-made casino labels from the 1960s. If serialization is to be believed, these blue labels were used roughly from 1980 to 81, then replaced by a white label in 82 that stated a division of Gibson along the bottom edge. The last Matsumoku labels had the headline Epiphone by Gibson, and we see these from around 1985 to 86. Before we get any deeper here, and you might argue we are already pretty deep, we should call out that the Matsumoku era had the most variation, with different tuners, bridges, and nut widths used throughout its run. As per usual, we're doing our best to keep it breezy, but if you've watched this channel before, you know the best intentions, these intentions go out the window pretty quick. Unlike the USA-made casinos, which had mahogany necks, the Matsumoku models had 3-piece maple necks, which aligned with shifts in Norlin-era Gibson production of Les Pauls and ES models in the States. These maple necks deliver a brighter, tighter sound, which works quite well to cut through any excessive woof from either the P90 pickups or the fully hollow body construction. These thin-line, fully hollow maple bodies remained largely unchanged, although you'll note that Matsumoku-made casino bodies are fractionally elongated, both in the horns and in the lower bout. Necks still meet the body at the 16th fret, aligning with pre-1968 casino spec, and the rosewood fretboards have parallelogram inlays. Focusing on the headstock end of things, nut width could be either a full 1 11/16, mirroring circa 1963 casino spec, or a more slender 1 9/16 inches, aligning with concurrent Gibson production on most ES models in the 1970s and into the 80s. One thing we found interesting is that while the Epi catalogs of the era tout the 1 9/16 nut width, most of the Matsumoku casinos we encounter have a full 1 11/16 width. So there you go.
There you go. Thank you, sir. There you go. Thank you, sir. There you go.
Tuners originally mirrored Grover Rotomatics, with larger buttons and nickel plating. But these were soon supplanted circa 1982 by different gear housings and smaller, rounder tuner buttons. And when it comes to those pesky serial numbers, we see a shift from a 6 to a 7-digit serial circa 1982. All Matsumoku-made serial numbers are inked in a rather large font, and this is a quick and easy way to identify both the era and factory of manufacture. Early Matsumoku-made examples had a Nashville-style bridge, and these bridges were used roughly through 1981. At that point, a shift was made to an ABR1 style bridge, more in keeping with 1960 spec. The P90s used in the Matsumoku-made casinos were produced by Maxon, and they are great, very much in keeping with that woody, glassy response of a 1960s casino. Available finishes included the usual natural and sunburst options, along with a distinctive dark two-tone burst known as antique violin. They also made these in walnut and wine red. Just as Gibson was owned by a larger conglomerate, Norlin, Matsumoku Industrial was also owned by Singer. Yeah, the company that makes sewing machines. Singer contracted Matsumoku to make sewing machines after World War II, eventually becoming a partially owned subsidiary of Singer. In 1986, bankruptcy was looming for Singer, and Matsumoku couldn't afford to buy themselves out, so the factory shut down in 1987, ending the initial run of Japanese-made Epiphone casinos. Gibson was similarly being bought and sold in 1986, this time by a private group of investors led by Henry Jeskowitz. Under Gibson's new leadership, Epiphone manufacturing shifted to the Terada factory in Japan, perhaps best known for their production of Gretsch guitars. Terada was quick to ramp up production, with a slate of Epiphones, including the casino, available in 1987. These casinos were initially produced for the Japanese domestic market, and as such there's very little to identify them as Japanese-made, save for the distinctive orange oval labels, which in most cases had a 5-digit serial number. While we have seen variations on Terada serials from this era, they typically translate to the first digit being the year of production, the second digit referencing the model, which for the casino, for some reason, was signified by the number 5, and 3 digits for the production number. So what sets the Terada casinos apart from the Matsumoku-made ones? A few things, but they are quite subtle, and both are equally high-quality instruments. One change of note is where the neck meets the body. While Matsumoku-made examples joined at the 16th fret, Terada-made casinos in this era meet the body at the 17th fret. Necks remain very slender and fast-feeling, also still made of maple, with one very notable exception, and we're going to get to that in a second. And while early examples would have no binding on the fret nibs, in 1993 there was a running change, where the binding now extended over the fret nibs, mirroring vintage USA-made Epiphone spec. Also of note, the nut width on all Terada-made Casinos from this time frame is a slender 1 9/16 inches. Tuners are Kluson style, bridges replicate a Gibson ABR-12 pneumatic, and the pickups, while no longer made by Maxon, still have a faithful vintage-style wind. One factory feature that does make an appearance in this era is the option for a USA-made Bigsby B7 vibrato tailpiece. Just like the casinos of the 1960s, the Bigsby could be installed from the factory in lieu of a trapeze tailpiece. In the 1990s, Epiphone was also beginning to get wise to the demand for Beatles-centric Epiphones. So Terada produced easily one of the rarest casinos of any era, the first John Lennon model, denoted simply by a JL model suffix. This practically prototypical Lennon model featured a B7 Bigsby vibrato, small black plastic accent ring around the pickup selector toggle, and most importantly, this was the first Terada Casino model to have a neck carved from mahogany instead of maple. The neck shape was also considerably deeper, more in line with mid-1960s casino specifications, and even a hair hardier than most of those. Finishes on a Terada-made casino would include the usual sunburst, natural, and wine red variants, but we've also had one example in an opaque white, so there are custom color options out there, in keeping with Japanese factories making unique short-run options beyond what's typically featured in a catalog. These Terada casinos would be produced from 1987 until 1996, when Gibson would again switch gears and move casino manufacturing to the Peerless factory in Korea. The Peerless guitars fill a unique space in the casino's legacy, and over the past few years they've really gained recognition for being the great instruments that they are. Specs stayed largely in line with the previous Terada versions, but mahogany necks become the norm here, still meeting the body at the 17th fret. Neck depth on these Korean-made Epiphones vary from a very slender C, similar to the Terada guitars, to a slightly meatier medium C carve. Fret edge binding goes the way of the dodo, and the nut width is once again variable, with both 1 11/16 and 1 9/16 options available. Korean Epiphone Casino production would run from 1996 to around 2006. But curiously, Japanese production had resumed in this time frame too. Enter the Elitist model, a widely beloved Epiphone Casino that tightened up various specs and brought the model even more in line with its 1960 forebears. The Elitists had mahogany necks, meeting the body at the vintage correct 16th fret, and Gibson USA-made P90 pickups. Nut width was standardized to 1.650 inches, a middle ground width seen circa 1965 on many casinos. And perhaps in a nod to one of John Lennon's favorite mods on his casino, the Elitists came stock with Grover Rotomatic tuners, even if this wasn't something offered in the 1960s. Now, the Elitist line was originally just Elite, with the Elite graphic seen on the back of headstocks from the line's introduction in 2002 until 2004. A name change was forced by the Ovation Company, which already had an Elite branded instrument line, and you'll find the Elitist text used from roughly 2005 onwards. While the Elitist line enjoyed a broader run in Japan from 2002 until 2008, as a testament to the casino's enduring popularity, it was the only model to continue Elitist production for many years after the line was otherwise discontinued. When it comes to serialization, Elitist serial numbers are more straightforward than most. All begin with a letter prefix denoting the factory, followed by 6 digits. The T prefix denotes production, which was once again back at the Terada factory. And from 2002 until 2009, the first number in the serial signifies the year of production. From 2010 onward, the first 2 numbers of the serial denote the year of production. So a T13 prefix would translate to a Terada-made guitar from 2013. Tangential to the Elitists and easily one of the most impactful casino models of the past few decades is the Epiphone USA John Lennon model. This guitar blurred the lines between Japanese and USA-made production. built at the Terada factory, but assembled by Gibson in the USA. This casino is jam-packed with vintage-correct touches, and Gibson enjoyed access to Lennon's original casino for this limited run, increasing the accuracy of the build, particularly the neck carve. Features included vintage-correct 5-ply maple birch body construction, with spruce bracing, fret edge binding, Gibson USA electronics, Clusen-style tuners, and the small black switch surround on the pickup selector, as well as a nitro lacquer finish, and that's a biggie. This would be in contrast to the poly finishes used on previous Matsumoku and Terada made models, as well as the guitars produced in Korea. Limited to 1,965 units, the Lennon model even had the exact serial number of Lennon's instrument, both stamped on the headstock and on the vintage correct blue Epiphone label inside the body. Here's a fun one, proving there's always another variant to explore with Japanese-made casinos. There's a barely known Lennon casino model, separate from the widely advertised run, made to celebrate what would have been John Lennon's 70th birthday. Only 70 were made, 35 in sunburst and 35 in natural, with Lennon's birthday added to the 12th fret parallelogram inlay. This edition had a premium case and ephemera, and it was also hand-signed by Yoko Ono. With the Elitist casino line quietly sunsetted, in 2021, Epiphone reintroduced casino production in the USA, bringing the model back home.
Peter.
We hope you've had an educational and enjoyable time with us on this journey, and what a journey it has been. You know what? We didn't talk about the pickguards. We forgot to talk about the pickguards, and the pickguards totally change on these. So Epiphone has that little epsilon badge, and it gets more and more accurate as production goes along. First in Matsumoku, they just silk screen it on, and it's not even a very vintage accurate silk screen. When we get to Terada, they're like, we'll do it a little bit better, but we're still gonna silk screen it. Then we get to the Peerless made casinos, and they say, no, we're actually gonna put the badge on the guard, like the old ones, but we're not gonna do it quite right either. We're gonna put this black backing on it that doesn't quite jive with 1960s production. And then finally we get to the John Lennon model, and they say, no, we're gonna do a single ply silver epsilon right there on the guard, the way it's supposed to be. It only took them the better part of 30 years. We hope you've had an educational and enjoyable time with us on this journey, and what a journey it has been. Please hit us up at mmguitarbar.com to chat about any of the many casino models we have from all eras of production. If you'd be so kind, drop us a like, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you soon.